When Brian asked me to move in, I didn't hesitate. After Tom passed, the silence in our little two-bedroom home in Macon felt louder than ever. Every creak in the floorboards, every empty chair, every unfinished crossword puzzle reminded me that I was alone. Some nights, I'd catch myself setting 2 plates out for dinner before realizing he's not coming back. So when Brian called and said, "Mom, we've got the space. It'll be good for you to be around Ellie more," and Rachel agrees, my heart opened like a window in spring. I packed my things slowly, folding memories into cardboard boxes, Tom's flannel shirt, my garden shears, and the little ceramic dish we used to keep keys in by the door. I whispered goodbye to every room. The first few weeks were warm. Rachel smiled more back then. Ellie would peek into my room every morning with her wild curls and whisper, "Grandma, are you awake?" I'd help get her dressed, sneak her extra Cheerios, and walk her to the car with her lunchbox swinging at her side. I felt useful again, like I had a role, a purpose. I even got into the rhythm of the house. I folded laundry in the afternoons while humming old Dolly Parton tunes. I organized the linen closet, though Rachel came behind me and rearranged it, which I told myself wasn't personal. At dinner, I helped set the table. 4 plates, 4 forks, napkins folded in triangles the way Tom used to like. I didn't mind staying in the small guest room at the end of the hallway. It had a tiny window and just enough space for my nightstand and a rocking chair. Rachel even let me hang a few pictures, wedding photos, a photo of Brian at 5, missing his front teeth, and smiling like the world belonged to him. I kept telling myself, "This is a new chapter, Clara. Be grateful. Don't overstep." And I was grateful. Every time I heard Ellie laugh, every time Brian came home and kissed the top of my head and said, "Smells like your chicken stew, Mom," I felt like I was right where I belonged. For the first time in a long while, I let myself believe that maybe this was what healing looked like. Not loud or dramatic, just a quiet seat at the table, folded napkins, and the clatter of dishes at the end of the day. And God, did that feel good while it lasted? The change didn't come like a thunderclap. It was quiet, almost polite, like someone slowly dimming the lights without telling you. It started with dinner. One evening, I walked into the dining room and saw only 3 plates. Rachel was stirring something at the stove. Brian was already seated, tapping on his phone. Ellie sat in her booster seat, humming to herself. My place at the table? Gone. I blinked. Maybe Rachel had forgotten. I went to the cabinet, took out a plate, and set it myself. No one said a word. Rachel didn't even look up. Brian nodded vaguely when I sat down, like I was part of the furniture. The next night, it happened again. 3 plates. Again, no mention. No apology. I set my own plate, smiling like it didn't sting. It was such a small thing, but it sat heavy on my chest. Like someone was telling me, softly but clearly, "You're not really part of this anymore." Brian stopped calling me Mom with that warm tone he used to have. Conversations turned into one-word replies. "Yeah. Fine. Busy." I'd ask how work was going. He'd shrug. Rachel didn't say much either unless it was to gently correct something I'd done. "We usually don't keep the cereal there, Clara." "Oh, Ellie likes her socks folded the other way," always said with a tight little smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I tried to stay useful, kept doing laundry, picked up groceries, cleaned the bathroom no one thanked me for. But I also learned when to step aside. I stopped entering the kitchen when Rachel was cooking. She never asked me not to, but she started rearranging everything I touched. The message was loud, even in silence. One afternoon, I offered to take Ellie to daycare to give them a break. Rachel hesitated, then said, "Thanks, but Ellie does better with her routine." I stood in the hallway, keys in hand, heart sinking. That was the moment I realized I wasn't being included. I was being managed. The worst part? Brian said nothing. He watched this slow freeze between his wife and me and just let it happen. No defense, no warmth, no, "Come sit, Mom." Just silence, and silence when it comes from someone you raised, someone you once held through fever dreams and heartbreaks, hurts more than yelling ever could. It was a Friday. I remember because I had spent most of the morning baking my peach cobbler, Tom's favorite. I hadn't made it in years, but I wanted to surprise the family. It was my small way of saying, "Thank you for letting me stay." I heard laughter from the dining room, Ellie's giggles, Rachel's voice, the clink of silverware. It made me smile. I carried the cobbler carefully, still warm, through the hallway. When I turned the corner, I stopped cold. 4 chairs, 4 plates, 4 drinks, but none of them for me. Rachel looked up first. Her smile was quick, brittle. "Oh, we figured you'd be more comfortable eating in the laundry room. It's quieter down there." She said it like she was offering a spa retreat, like folding towels and sitting by the dryer was a privilege. I looked at Brian, my son. He didn't even flinch, just kept eating. "Brian?" I asked, voice barely a whisper. He glanced up. "Rachel just thought it might be more peaceful for you. You know, space." I nodded like I understood, like it made sense, like it didn't feel like a slap. I walked downstairs, cobbler still in my hands, and sat on the little metal stool in the laundry room. No placemat, no napkin, just the hum of the dryer and a bottle of lemon detergent staring back at me. I ate in silence. The food tasted like cardboard. I kept blinking, willing myself not to cry. I failed. After dinner, I brought the cobbler back upstairs. The table was already cleared. Rachel glanced at it. "Maybe we'll try it tomorrow." No one touched it. That night, I cried into my pillow. Not just because I'd been pushed aside, but because Brian let it happen. He didn't speak up, didn't sit beside me, didn't even ask if I was okay. And then came my birthday. I wasn't expecting a big fuss, but I thought maybe a card, a slice of cake, something. Instead, Rachel reminded me to use the laundry during non-peak hours. Brian asked me to keep Ellie quiet during her nap. That was it. I walked to the corner store and bought myself a cupcake, ate it on a park bench under a flickering street lamp, whispered happy birthday to myself, and cried behind my scarf. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not loud, not messy, but final. Like a door slowly closing, with no one noticing I was still standing on the other side. It happened while I was folding laundry, which felt painfully poetic later. Brian had left a basket of clothes by the door without a word. I didn't mind. I needed something to do. My hands moved automatically, shirt, towel, sock, until I reached one of his old college hoodies. I paused. That sweatshirt had paint stains from when he and Tom fixed up the porch the summer he turned 19. I remembered how proud he was of that work. I remembered how proud we were of him. My fingers stilled. I looked around the laundry room, the washer humming behind me, and for the first time in weeks, I asked myself a question I'd been too tired to face. How did I end up here? In the room where people store bleach and mismatch socks? That's when the memory hit me. The deed, the house. This house wasn't Brian's, it was mine. Tom and I had bought it in 1992. 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, a creaky porch we loved to decorate for the holidays. When we downsized, we kept it, rented it out for years. When Ellie was born, Brian asked if they could move in. I said yes, of course. Anything for my son. But we never sold it, never transferred the title. I blinked, heart pounding. Could it really still be mine? That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I pulled the old storage key from my purse. I hadn't used it since Tom passed. Drove to the condo's garage, heart beating like a war drum. The file cabinet was still there, dusty, dented, but locked, just like I left it. I opened the bottom drawer. There it was, a worn manila folder labeled Property, Sycamore Street. Inside, I found the original deed, my name, Tom's signature. No amendments, no transfer, no sale. I sat there, alone on the cold cement floor, hands trembling. Not from fear, from clarity. They thought I was a guest. They thought I had nowhere to go. They thought they could push me into a laundry room and I'd just stay quiet. But this house, they were living in my house, and I could feel something shift inside me. Not rage, not revenge, resolve. It was time to stop waiting for kindness. It was time to remember who I was. And tomorrow, I was going to call a lawyer. I didn't tell them right away. I didn't slam doors or raise my voice. That's not who I am. Instead, I made a quiet phone call the next morning. My lawyer, Mr. Hastings, still had the same number after all these years. "Margaret," he said, his voice calm and familiar, "you're absolutely still the legal owner. I can help you draft a sale agreement or a notice to vacate, whatever you want." I thanked him, told him I'd think about it, but really, my mind was already made up. I wasn't going to kick them out with a nasty letter on the fridge. I wasn't going to yell or accuse or beg for respect. I'd done enough of that, in my head, in my heart. No one had listened. So instead, I started moving in silence. I pulled out a blank notepad that night, sat on my bed with the soft hum of the house around me, and wrote the kind of letter no one sees coming. Firm, polite, legally sound. The house was being sold. The buyers would be taking possession in no negotiation. The next day, I slipped the envelope on the kitchen counter, right next to the coffee maker Brian uses every morning. Then I went on my morning walk, 3 laps around the block. The cold air felt different, crisper somehow, like I could finally breathe in a house that had been suffocating me for months. When I returned, the envelope was gone. The house was too quiet. I found Brian in the living room holding the letter with both hands, like it might catch fire. Rachel was pacing by the stairs, her face pale and pinched. "Mom," Brian said finally, "what is this?" I looked at him, really looked. The boy I raised was still in there somewhere, but buried so deep I wasn't sure he'd come back. "It's notice," I said softly. "The house is being sold. I've signed the papers. You'll have 30 days. His mouth opened, then closed. He looked stunned, like I'd hit him with something heavy, but invisible. "You can't do this," he muttered. "This is our home." "No," I said. "It was mine. You just forgot." Rachel stormed out. Brian didn't follow her. He just stood there, silent. For once, the silence was his burden to carry, not mine. I walked past him, calm and steady. My hands didn't shake, because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't fading. I was standing. The day they left, the house felt heavier than usual, like it was holding its breath. There was no argument, no tearful goodbye, no last-minute apology, just the low hum of a moving truck in the driveway, the soft thuds of boxes being carried out, and then silence. I stayed upstairs. I didn't need to watch them go. I'd already done my grieving. When the door finally closed behind them, I walked slowly through each room. The living room was bare now. No toys on the rug, no shoes by the door, just sunlight pouring in through the windows I'd kept closed for too long. I opened every curtain, let the light flood in. The house didn't feel empty. It felt like it had exhaled. That afternoon, I made myself a proper meal. I set the table, my table, with a real placemat, my favorite blue plate, a cloth napkin, and a vase of fresh tulips I'd picked up at the market. No one sighed, no one rolled their eyes. I ate in peace. And for the first time, eating alone didn't feel like a punishment. It felt like freedom. The next week, I started rearranging the house. Not for anyone else, but for me. I brought down the old books from the attic, played music in the kitchen, and lit candles just because. I joined a book club at the library and even invited the neighbor across the street over for tea. She brought lemon cake. We laughed like old friends. I wasn't lonely. I was living. One morning, I found myself back in the laundry room. Same metal stool, same hum of the washer. But this time, I wasn't folding someone else's clothes. I was sorting through old photos. My favorite one? Me and Tom on the porch the year we bought this house, arms wrapped around each other, smiling like we owned the whole world. I smiled back at her, at me. I don't know what comes next, but I know this. I'm no longer waiting to be seen. I see myself, and that's more than enough. Have you ever felt like you were invisible in your own family? If Clara's story reminds you of something you've lived through, or something you're still carrying, don't hold it alone. Share your thoughts in the comments. You never know who needs to hear that they're not alone. And if this story touched your heart, I hope you'll stay for the next one. Because every woman deserves to be seen, heard, and remembered, always.